Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about how you can use your assets to meet the income requirements on the I-864 Affidavit of Support as well as the I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, hello, my name is Stephanie D'Angelo. I'm the founder of D'Angelo Law PLC. Make sure you subscribe and turn your post notifications on by hitting that bell button. That way you can be notified each and every time I upload a new video. As many of you already know, when issuing permanent residency for any beneficiary, the government wants to make sure that that beneficiary will not become a public charge in the future. So in order to make sure that a beneficiary won't become a public charge and rely on public benefits in the future, they require those that are coming through family-based petitions to have a sponsor who would sign the affidavit of support proving that they have sufficient income and or assets to take care of that beneficiary once they are here in the United States. That affidavit of support is a contract between the sponsor and the government saying that they will be financially responsible for the beneficiary once they are here in the United States. On February 24, 2020, USCIS added an extra protective measure to make sure that any beneficiary of permanent residency would not become a public charge by requiring each applicant for adjustment of status to sign an I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. With respect to meeting income requirements, the I-864 Affidavit of Support and the I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency are very similar. For both, you have to prove the household income, and if the income isn't sufficient, then you have to supplement that income with proof of assets. The poverty guidelines will dictate what the minimum income requirement is for each household size. So in order to meet the income requirement, your household income must be 125% of the poverty guideline for that household size. As you can see, for a household size of 2, the poverty guideline is $17,240. This table also shows what 125% of that poverty guideline is and what your household income must be in order to be sufficient. So the 125% poverty guideline for a household with 2 members in it is $21,550. Now, if your household income isn't at least that amount, then whatever the difference is between your actual income and that poverty guideline, the 125% poverty guideline, you must use the net cash value of your assets in order to meet that minimum amount. So the way you would do that is your net cash value of your assets have to be at least 5 times the difference between your actual income and the poverty guideline. So here, 125% of the poverty guideline for household size of 2 is $21,550. So let's say, for example, through your tax return, you can only prove a household income of $16,000 last year. You have a difference of $5,550 that you need to make up with assets. However, you can't just show one asset that is worth $5,550. The net cash value of your assets actually has to be 5 times that difference. So 5 times that $5,550. Now, in both the Affidavit of Support and the Declaration of Self-Sufficiency, you can use your household members' assets and income as well. It's not just your assets or income. You can also use the financial information from other members of your household to meet the requirements. One of the assets that you can include in both the Affidavit of Support and the Declaration of Self-Sufficiency is the balance of all savings and checking accounts. You would also have to provide evidence of that balance in the form of bank statements over the last 12 months. Another asset you could use is any real estate that you may own. You would provide the net cash value of any real estate holdings. The net cash value is its appraised value minus any loan secured by a mortgage or any other lien on the property. You can also submit the net cash value of all stocks, bonds, and certificates of deposit. Make sure you also submit evidence and ownership of that stock or bond. The Declaration of Self-Sufficiency also allows you to include annuities as well as any retirement or educational accounts. Remember, you can only list assets that can be converted into cash within 12 months. Let's quickly go over how you would input this information into both of the forms. So let's start with the Affidavit of Support. If you go to page 5, Part 7 is use of assets of supplemental income. So Part 7, this is where the sponsor will complete their information for their household. So their assets as well as any members in their household. Number 1, they would enter the balance of all savings and checking accounts. Number 2 is where they would input the cash value of their real estate holdings. Number 3, if they have any stocks, bonds, certificates of deposit, they would include it here. Then you would add it all together for Part 4. If you're the sponsor and you need to use a household member's income and or assets to meet the income requirement, then that household member must also sign an I-864A contract between the sponsor and household member as well. So number 5A says assets from that relative's, that household member's assets. So you would put the name of the household member, the relative, as well as the total amount from their form. Next, if you're going to be using assets from the sponsored immigrant, so the beneficiary, the person that you're sponsoring, you could use their assets as well. So this is where you would include the information regarding the sponsored immigrant's assets. So same thing. 6, you would include their savings and checking accounts. 7, cash value of real estate holdings. 8, stocks, bonds, certificates of deposit. And then 9, you would add it all together. Number 10, you would add everything together. So it would be the sponsored immigrant, the beneficiary. You would add the household member's assets if you included that, and you would include your assets as well, your household assets there. So that's how you do it for the I-864. Let's take a look at the I-944 Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. Here's where you would include the assets and resources information. It's a table that you need to fill out, and it's not as clear as the Affidavit of Support, but we'll go through it. So first column, you would put the name of the asset holder who owns that specific asset. And then the second column, there's a drop down menu that you can select from. So if you click on the arrow, it'll show the options. It'll show you the bank account, real estate holdings, retirement accounts, annuities. You can select whichever one's appropriate. And then on the right column, you would input the asset amount in US dollars. And then you would total all of the assets that you included at the very bottom. So that's how you would fill out the Affidavit of Support using assets, as well as the Declaration of Self-Sufficiency using assets. So if your household income with proof through tax returns isn't sufficient to meet the 125% of the poverty guideline for your household size, then you need to use assets to supplement that information and meet that 125%. So as I mentioned before, whatever the difference is between your actual income and the poverty guideline, the 125%, your assets, the net cash value of all your assets must be 5 times that amount in order to meet the necessary income requirements for the Affidavit of Support and Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions regarding filling out the form whatsoever, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you have any requests for future videos, you can also leave them in the comments as well. Please also share with anyone that you feel would benefit from this video and would need to know this type of information when completing the form. You want to make sure that everything is filled out correctly, because this is a huge contentious issue within U.S. immigration. They want to make sure that nobody would be considered a public charge and relying on public benefits in the future. Make sure you're subscribed with your post notifications turned on. That way you can be notified each and every time I upload a new video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.